Oh man, the stock market is it's just such a funny place. It's the only place where you can go from like being like, do I want a basketball court and a tennis court in my backyard, or do I want just one, right? And you're feeling so rich, and then the next minute you're so broke, you're like, ah man, I don't even know if I can afford to eat 2 ramen noodles. I think I might just have to eat one. Two might be too much. I can only afford 20 cents a meal, right? And then you're back to rich again. And you're like, man, what a roller coaster ride it is. What a roller coaster ride it is. We got a lot to get into in today's video, guys. Hope you enjoy this as always. Thanks for joining me. A lot I want to share with you guys in all seriousness in this video, not just about what's kind of going on in the state of the market right now, but kind of prep you up for what's going on this upcoming week, which I think is very, very important. And I don't know, I might take the weekend off, so I don't know, man. We'll see. If I get bored, I'll do a weekend video for you guys, but as of right now, I think I might take the weekend off. We'll see, okay? But nonetheless, it was a mixed day kind of in the market today, which is a huge win. For the bulls, this is a huge win today, because today should have been a day when the market was down massively, which just goes to show you how something is pushing the market right now. Because I don't feel the vibes of people being very bullish out there actually right now. When I look at the retail community, I don't feel like people are necessarily like, oh, go all in, I got to margin out stocks right now, and oh, we're going to the moon. I don't see those sorts of vibes at all. And I'm not like in the Wall Street Bets community, so maybe that's a different thing there. But from what I see, and from the folks I talk about myself, they're very, very cautious in this market right now. And even if they're not cautious, a lot of them are disbelievers in the market. So what I see consistently in the market right now is people either very cautious or actually disbelievers that this is a real rally that we've had here recently, which the NASDAQ's up about 15%-ish, or maybe even a little over 15% from the lows essentially. And that's what I'm seeing in the market. So it's a very interesting market we have going on at the moment, right? And, Miss Cathie, come on, man. I covered this last week essentially, but ARK sold off 1.4 million shares of Coinbase. And ARK has this history of putting a ton of money in some of these stocks and then selling them when they're pretty much near their all-time lows. And so, I covered that last week, right? ARK sells all those shares. So guess what happened to Coinbase this week, okay? You can't make this stuff up. Here's what happened to Coinbase this week. The stock price went up 54 flipping flapjacking percent this week. You gotta be kidding me. Come on, man. 54% this week, just after she dumps that massive quantity of shares, 1.4 million of shares. Holy smokers, that ain't no jokers. Run the math on that. If she had just held just through this week, like she could have sold today or something like that, right? I mean, imagine that. You're talking about tens of millions of dollars at play there. I mean, it's not a small amount of money. So yeah, it just goes to show you, man, have conviction. At the end of the day, if you're going to go through it, man. Have conviction in your plays, okay? Now, really good news is oil just continues to plummet. And I mean absolutely plummet. And now at this point in time, basically oil prices all the way back to where it was prior to Russia invading Ukraine. Think about this for a moment. All the way back to those sorts of levels to prior to that, which just kind of goes to show you how bearish the oil market has gotten now at this point in time. And the issue you had when it comes to the oil market, right, is we were in a situation here where all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Russia invades Ukraine. Everybody freaks out. There starts to be this huge bullish momentum into the oil market, essentially. Then we came upon summer, and everybody's like, it's going to be a revenge travel summer, right? Everybody's going to be out there traveling, driving around, things like that, right? And so that all played out, and that happened, right? But now you don't have that moving forward. You don't have this out of the ordinary freakish situation. We've all moved past all that now. Obviously, Russia-Ukraine is an ongoing saga, right? But that's old news now at this point in time. We're 6 months into that or so. We're well into that whole situation, right? Meanwhile, they keep getting more and more rigs up and going in the United States. If you look at basically the Baker Hughes count, week after week after week, more and more oil rigs are coming out there. OPEC announced they're going to raise production, but it's not a huge amount in my personal opinion. But nonetheless, and they have flirted with the idea of raising output even more. But nonetheless, oil just got into this very, very bullish, incredible cycle that just, if you don't think commodities can get into hype cycles like a stock can, you're wrong. They do. We've seen that time and time again with basically every commodity you could possibly think of can go through these insane hype cycles and excitement cycles. And sometimes it's over like bad news that could be going on out there, but everybody gets really excited about it, right? And so, yeah, that's what happened in the oil market. But now that those days are fading away, now in terms of gas price, what you pay at the pump, I think we should see the prices continue to decline over the next month or two. It's just, it takes a while, unfortunately. That's the way the gas stations work, man. If oil prices are going up, they raise that price quick. But believe me, they're very slow in lowering prices, okay? That's the way that market works, all right? BYND. Oh my gosh. 22% today? You got to be flipping my flapjacks. This is a shocking move because Beyond Meat's earnings were trash. Let's be clear about that. They also announced they're going to lay off some employees. Horrible earnings. What happened here with Beyond Meat today? Why was that stock up 22%? The reason that stock was down up 22% today and not down a bunch is the shareholders had already baked in like end of the world news. It was one of the most heavily shorted stocks out there you could pretty much find, okay? When you looked at that stock after hours, especially after it had been trading after hours, for an hour or two, you didn't see the move you really needed to see as a short seller. And so this caused a scenario where shorts started, let's call it they needed to put a diaper on because it wasn't looking pretty, right? So they start kind of freaking out because they're like, oh my gosh, man, we're in a real pickle here. This baby's not going down. And there's massive amounts of shorts in this stock. And they start to cover left and right? And when you cover a short, essentially you're buying the underlying shares. So that's what ended up happening with Beyond Meat here today. In Beyond Meat, and I own 1,000 shares of the stock, and it's definitely the stock that if you told me I got to sell a stock tomorrow, it'd be the stock I would sell. Beyond Meat reminds me, I don't know how many of you guys ever watch sports, right? Like NBA, NFL, like sports like that, right? And you have these high draft picks come out of the draft, and they're, supposed to be great and turn into these great things, okay? And Beyond Meat reminds me of a draft pick that ended up being a bust. And the reason being is when this company came public, to be quite honest, they looked like a number one draft pick. They were innovating at a high pace. They had this incredible growth rates. They looked in a great position. And what happened over time is they flopped. They stopped innovating completely at that company. Like the same products I see at store shelves for Beyond Meat today is the same ones I saw back when that company went IPO. They just flopped, man. They stopped innovating. They stopped coming out with new products. They do tests with some of these different, fast food companies, and the next thing you know, they're right back out. I just got to be honest. Ethan Brown has done a bad job running the company, very bad job. The whole management team just has done a horrible job, and that just is what it is. You can't even compare. Like I look at I look at what the chef does, and their management team's freaking ridiculous. I know they missed out one earnings, and everybody freaked out over that. But at the actual underlying business, the SKU expansion, the new products they come out with, the sell-through, everything across the board, like it's night and day. Like they make Beyond Meat look like they're General Motors, and Tattoo Chef looks like the Tesla of food. You can't even compare the companies. They run laps around them, and does Beyond Meat maybe innovate a little more than the average food company? Sure, but that's not saying much. And they had this extraordinary opportunity, and to be honest, they're getting their lunch eaten by Impossible. And if I could buy Impossible stock, which I can't because they're a private company, but if I could, like Impossible any day of the week. I've watched the way Impossible's innovated over the last couple of years versus Beyond Meat. It's a joke, man. It's not even close. So yeah, that's kind of what's going on with that stock. But yeah, huge upward move and on a short squeeze there, and you can get those sorts of situations, right? And this even bled over to all the plant-based food stocks here today, right? And the chef moved up 12% plus here today. And when it comes to this, people look at like Beyond earnings and they're like, man, that was straight trash. And the stock went up 22%. So, I don't think anybody's excited about the chef earnings that are coming up here that we'll discuss in a little later on in the video. But the way people look at this is they're like, hey, you can get a 22% move and Beyond on trash. Like, what could we be looking at as chef? We know a lot of people are short the chef. I think there was probably some shorts that covered today, to be honest, in the chef. I would say high probability that at least decent amount of shorts covered today. Let me pull up the volume on Chef. I didn't prep this out, but let me just pull this up because I'm actually interested. I don't know what the volume was in Chef today. So in terms of the Chef today, 1.36 million shares traded hands. Average volume's a little under 500,000. That smells like a little short squeeze, a little covering action there. And yeah, I mean, if I was short, stock like the Chef, which is, like I said, they run laps around Beyond Meat, I'd be at least a little concerned after you see Beyond go up 22% on horrible earnings. It's like, could the Chef do that on their earnings, right? And so I think that's part of that. Corsair made a nice upward move, 5.5%. Here's the thing, the Corsair numbers came out and were disappointing, but everybody already knew that. They already pre-announced. So, I saw some shorts and things like that, like thinking like Corsair was going to tank more. And even saw some longs sell out of this stock this week, early in the week, because they thought, they're going to report bad numbers, so I got to get out of the stock. And it's like, everybody already knew the bad numbers. So, people ended up just selling the stock earlier in the week at, that's 13, 14 a share or something like that. And here we are, close the week at 16.50. Like, you could have waited to the end of the week if you really wanted to cash out of the stock that bad. But people get very caught up into these short-term games of trying to get in and out of these stocks and things like that because they got so used to this crazy downward market we were in for the first 6 months of this year, where it was the worst stock market we've seen since over 50 years. We hadn't seen that bad of a market for the first 6 months of the year in over 50 years. So people just got very caught up into this game of like trying to get in and out of these positions and things like that. And it's like, dude, either don't be a Cathie Wood. Either have the conviction and stay with it, unless you feel like the business is complete trash. And with a Corsair, you can't say this business is trash at all. This is a great company. It's very well run. They had some incredible comps to comp against, coming off of obviously Rona. But that company has a brilliant future in front of it. I think anybody that's studied this industry knows that the products are very highly respected in the gaming space. Gaming's not going away. Gaming will continue to get bigger, and there's a big game coming here in a couple months that I think is going to be the biggest game in quite some time for getting the gaming sector kind of boosted back up and everybody really excited. And Corsair also, their management team, said they're actually expecting growth in the back half of this year, okay, and expecting the business to accelerate. So there's just kind of some food for thought there, but yeah, people, they get really caught up into the short-term stuff going on with these companies, and it's like, just have the long-term, just understand where these companies' net incomes are going over the next few years, not where it's at today, okay? Now, Oatley also made a big, nice upward move with, obviously, the move in Beyond today, the move in Chef. Obviously, Oatley made a big move. That was up 6%. Oatley should be the leader in this space. Unfortunately, the way people look at this is they think Beyond is a leader of the plant-based space, and that was true 2 or 3 years ago. It's not true today. The leader of the plant-based food movement, in my personal opinion, is a company actually named Impossible Foods, which is a private company. The number 2 leader in the plant-based food space, in my personal opinion, as somebody that's studied this industry probably more than any human on this planet, is Oatley. And then should be the second stock that is looked at. That should be the main stock. If Impossible was a public company, then that would be the most important stock. But for today, for now, Oatley should be the number 1 stock that everybody looks at as kind of like the pillar for the sector for plant-based foods. The number 3 should be Tattooed Chef. And the number 4 should be Beyond Meat, okay? So that's the way I personally believe like the rankings are when it comes to these plant-based food companies and their importance in this space and kind of what they're doing. But that's not the way Wall Street views it right now. And Wall Street doesn't even have a clue about what's going on in the plant-based food movement and what these companies are doing or things like that. They're clueless. That's why they continue to not see these opportunities. That's why they get caught off guard with the 22% move in Beyond Meat today. Like, they're treating these stocks as kind of like gambling mechanisms right now and kind of trading opportunities. Long term they'll get the vision, they'll get the story, especially as these companies get profitable, and then it'll all start to play out. But it just takes that time. For right now, they're just kind of using them as trading, gambling mechanisms, I call them. Okay, the Tesla also made a massive downward move here today, 6.5%, which is that's a really big downward move on a day when obviously it wasn't like today was some bad day in the market. Like actually a lot of stocks were up today. So this was a huge move down for Tesla. Just really disappointing day coming off of obviously all the Elon information and whatnot, right? And in terms of all the different subjects he discussed at the shareholder meeting here recently. And there's a couple things I thought were interesting. One is he thinks Tesla's going to produce 20 million vehicles annually by 2030. So that beats all my estimates. I had this company when I used to do my growth estimates, I ran them out to like 2028, 2029, because I was buying the stock back in 2018, 2019, right? And so I used to run my numbers for 2028, 2029. I had them doing kind of like bear case, 5 million cars a year, and bull case doing 10 million cars a year. He thinks they're going to do 20 million cars a year by the end of this decade. So that's just an incredible number, and I hope they do it, and I hope they accomplish that. But that's definitely a huge number, and it definitely perked up some people's ears. But for a lot of the Tesla bulls, they already kind of have those sorts of 15, 20 million type numbers in there. So it didn't really excite people. And I think there was a huge mistake that was made. I'm going to be quite honest, and I think this is a real reason the stock was down 6.5% today. Basically, Elon teased the idea of a share buyback, okay? Now, in almost all other shareholder bases, if a CEO talks about, hey, we might be interested in potentially doing a stock buyback, it excites a shareholder base, and they're like, yeah, that's awesome. Tesla's a one-of-one kind of shareholder base. I don't think they liked hearing that, to be honest. I've been a part of this community for long enough to understand the way all my peers kind of think in this. They want to see Tesla use every dollar possible to expand this business as much as possible. They don't want to see the company spend $5 billion on a share buyback, or $10 billion, or $20 billion, or whatever the number is, $50 billion. They don't want it to become another Apple, okay? So shareholders, I think they want all free cash flow, if they're going to spend it on something, to spend it on more gigafactories, to spend it on more R&D for new products and services, because they want to keep the growth rates up for not just the next 5 years, but for the next 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, right? And so I think that was actually a misstep by Elon to even entertain the idea of doing a stock buyback, to be honest. And I think that's a huge turnoff for a lot of folks in the shareholder base. They don't want a stock buyback, man. They don't want this to be like the other, a lot of the other big tech companies that it feels like they don't innovate fast enough, right? And so, yeah, I just know the Tesla shareholder base, they want that money spent back on the business, not on buying shares back of that stock, okay? No, the jobs number came out here today, and what Wall Street really wanted the numbers to be slightly disappointing. The numbers came out and it was incredible. I mean, payrolls increased 528,000 in July, right? Non-farm payrolls rose 528,000 for the month, and the unemployment rate was 3.5%, easily topping estimates of 258,000. So that's just an incredible number. Wage growth also went up. Average hourly earnings jumped 0.5% for the month and 5.2% from a year ago, higher than estimates. So now traders are now pricing in a higher likelihood of, basically a 0.75 percentage point hike from the Fed when they do their meeting in September. So yeah, it was interesting to see the market not sell off big, and that's why I said today was a huge win for the bulls, because for the market not to sell off today is a big moment for the bulls, because the fear was if the number came in dramatically bad, then everybody gets scared about recession. But if the number comes in red hot, like that's a red hot number there, then people start to worry about the economy still overheating. The Fed's going to have to keep raising rates and right? And so, yeah, it was just very, very interesting to see how strong the market held today, despite what no one really wanted to see. Honestly, I think this was the worst case scenario for the stock market. I think the stock market would have been actually much more comfortable with that jobs number coming in at like 100,000, or just a number they missed huge, because they would have been like, okay, see, the Fed, they're going to have to lay off because there's going to be more and more recession fears now. So that was just interesting to see how strong this dang market stayed on a day like today. And that's why I say, the bulls are in control of the market right now. Doesn't mean they're going to stay in control, but they're in clear control of this market right now. They are the captain. And it is very clear. If you can't get the market to move down on a day like today, that's kind of telling to what's going on out there, right? Chinese stocks had a tough day. They did not entertain the rally. You looked at Tencent, Baba, Neo, JD, all these guys were down pretty big here today. And here's the deal, right? So if you didn't know, Pelosi earlier in the week, she visited Taiwan, all right? Now all of a sudden China is going to cut off contact information in terms of like some military related things, and then also in terms of environmental related things, okay? Which just kind of fits right into China's whole thing. Do you think China really wants to give all this information out about what they're doing to the environment? I think they try to give the perception like they care about the environment so much, but I think the reality is they don't care about it nearly as much, right? So they're like, oh yeah, we're not going to share some military information with you guys now, and we're not going to share, this climate information with you. Come on, man, come on. So at the end of the day, if China wants to play that way, it's not going to be good for these Chinese stocks, right? It just causes more tension there, and it causes more reason for people to not want to buy stocks like BABA and these other stocks that have the potential of being delisted over the next year or two. There's already been so much tension between China and the U.S. over the past, I would call it 3 to 5 years, really. If you go back to, obviously, the Trump days, there was a ton of tension, between China and the U.S. during those days, right? Then you had Rona, which obviously originated in China. So there's been a lot of tension for several years now between the China and U.S., and it seemed like maybe it was getting a little better, but I'm not so sure about that now, okay? And here's the thing, okay? China needs the U.S. China acts like, this and that. The China needs the U.S., not just from the standpoint of how many basically direct jobs in China are a reflection of companies that spend to manufacture products over there, but keep this in mind. China holds over $1 trillion worth of United States debt, okay? So the bottom line is the United States needs China to a certain extent, but China needs the U.S. to a whole lot bigger extent, okay? And, China wants to be dad so bad in this situation, but they're not. They're just simply not. They want to be, and they want to try to show this and show that, but they're just not in control of the situation. And, all they're going to do is just hurt themselves even worse and worse. They already have a real estate crisis on their hands in China that, in terms of what comes out of China, you kind of, because they basically it's all state-run media and things like that, you aren't really getting like how bad things are really going on in China and all the protests that are going on and just a lot of various things. And if you want to go down all those rabbit holes, you can find the information out there. It's just not easy to find it compared to, how it would be for a lot of other countries because of, basically how much of a grip they have on their media over there, okay? Now, investors are all of a sudden, that's why I put an LOL here, they're all of a sudden turning bullish on the market. Can you believe this? They're still more bearish than bullish. Let's be clear about that, okay? But they're starting to turn more bullish now at this point in time. And it reminds me of, is it the chicken or the egg? What came first, right? So this is the AI investor sentiment. I've been showing this the last few months, okay? And this is how investors feel the stock market will do over the next 6 months. Are they bullish on the market the next 6 months or bearish, right? And basically, if you go back to late June, we were at under 20% of investors were bullish on the market. And some of those weeks were coming in at like 16, 18, 19%. So like under 20% of investors bullish on the stock market over the next 6 months was an incredibly low number. Like it's just ridiculous, okay? But that's a state of the market that we're in, right? And many of those weeks at the end of June and in the month of June, we were, if you go back and look at those numbers, we had, roughly 50, 60% of investors were bearish on the market for the next 6 months, which was ridiculous. Like some of those numbers are like 54% or 58%, just insane numbers. Then it's like, are you serious? Like we're really this bearish on the market, right? But now all of a sudden, June ended, July came. July was a very good month for the market. August has started out pretty respectably here. And now all of a sudden, investors are starting to turn more bullish, right? And it's like, is the market turning because people are starting to turn more bullish? Or is it a situation where, the market's going up, so now people are turning more bullish, right? And that's just kind of what you got to think. And, no one really knows. It's the chicken or the egg, the whole situation, what came first, right? But, that's just interesting. So, but do keep this in mind. There's still more people bearish on the market the next 6 months than bullish. But I can tell you if the market keeps going up, these numbers will end up flipping, and let's just assume for a moment, and this might not happen, but let's just assume that the stock market keeps going up for the month of August, and we have another great month, the whole month of August. I'd almost guarantee you by the end of August, you'll have more investors bullish on the market than bearish, which would be just a crazy turn in a 2-month span. But whenever I show these in the past, I'd always bring up the historical data, and I showed you guys, like even in 2008, 2009. The week, like we saw the highest number that I have ever seen for the bearish number the week the market was about to turn in 2009. Over 70% of investors were bearish on the market for the next 6 months in March of 2009. And guess what? That was the bottom of the market, and the market made a massive bull run from there. So basically almost everybody was wrong, right? So that's just some food for thought there, and how wrong these investors are just time and time again, and it cracks me up. Okay, now for this upcoming week, some important things going on. Obviously, for me personally, Monday after the bell, the chef is reporting earnings. Now, for me, when it comes to the chef, I'm not expecting anything crazy in these earnings. I'm expecting kind of a boring earnings. The management team already said last quarter, essentially, they're not expecting any sort of major margin improvement this quarter. They're expecting that starting in 3Q and 4Q in the back half of the year. So I think 3Q and 4Q are the really important quarters. I think, growth will be somewhere between, I don't know, maybe 25 and 30% revenue growth. I'm not expecting much. Obviously, the company's going to lose money. We all know that. Free cash flow is going to be negative. We all know that. So if anything comes out of the ordinary that's positive, I think there's upside there. But, in terms of downside, I think everybody's kind of prepped for whatever is going to happen there. I got money ready to go. So in case that stock goes down, I'm ready to buy some shares. I would love to get over 100,000 shares this upcoming week. And if the stock drops in any meaningful way, I'll pick up some more shares. And all I need is another 3,000 something shares, and I'll be over 100,000. And that's been a big goal of mine, to get over 100,000 shares as chef. So, if it drops this week, then I will go ahead and make that happen. If it goes up a bunch this week, then I'll probably just lay back and just kind of let things play out and kind of see where things go from there. Okay. Now, in terms of what the biggest thing for the market this upcoming week is the CPI numbers. Those come out on August 10th. So that's Wednesday. And, that's what the market's paying attention to this week. That is the most important thing for the stock market right now. We still got another busy week of earnings here, but those are more mid caps and small cap companies. And the stock market doesn't really care about those. Those aren't market movers. The big techs already reported. The banks already reported. Those are the market movers. So now at this point in time, the mids and smalls, it's not moving the market. That's going to move those individual stocks, but it's not going to move the market. CPI number will move the market. And I think, if we could come in with a 7 in front of it, I think that would be a huge win for the bulls. If we come in at 8 something, I think it's going to be kind of what's expected. If we somehow came in with another 9, market's back down again. So let's hope that doesn't happen. I don't think that's going to happen, to be honest. Just looking at energy prices and kind of everything, plus the comps year over year. Yeah, I think that's pretty unrealistic, but we shall see, okay? Hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, if you're looking to join my private stock group in the Financial Fortress program, you want to learn how to value a stock to know if they're overvalued, undervalued, fairly valued. You want to learn how to understand financial statements like income statements, balance sheets, cash flows like a CPA would. If you want to get access to my dividend investing mastery course, my Becoming Master of the Stock Market course, and my Thriving in a Recession course, which I just added a new video here recently. If you also want to get access to my private Discord chat, knows what the moves I'm making in the market and things like that, you can go ahead and check out pinned comment down there. Apply to join us in the private stock group. Much love as always, and have a great day.